7, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We are here for the sole purpose of the Athens Gen pilot. So I'm going to read the public notice. I have the sign-in sheets, and I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Bathroom is to the back here. In case of an emergency, the exits are here and to the front of the building. If you did sign in and you did not mark yes, there will be opportunity at the end if you would like to speak. I will ask for hands at the end. Currently, our policy is 3 minutes per person. This is a large crowd. We were approached by one member of the community. We're going to double his time in the beginning, and somebody else already forego their 3 minutes. So we will allow Lee Palmetier to speak for 9 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to read the public notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing pursuant to Section 859-A of the New York State General Municipal Law as amended will be held by the Greene County Industrial Development Agency on the 29th of March of 2023 at 6 p.m. local time at the E.J. Arthur Elementary School, 51 3rd Street, Athens, New York, 12015. The GCIDA is proposing to provide incentives to New Athens Generating Company in the form of a payment in lieu of taxes. The application submitted by the company and relevant supporting documents submitted to the GCIDA in connection with the project may be reviewed by the public on the IDA's website at www.greenida.com. Inquiries about the project and the GCIDA assistance should be directed to April Ernst, Executive Director. My email is ernst@greenida.com. The GCIDA will, at the above stated time and place, hear all persons with views in favor or opposition to the rendering of financial assistance by the GCIDA for the project. Minutes of the hearing will be made available to the public and members of the GCIDA. With that, I'm going in random order of the sheets that are signed in, so as you signed in, it might not be in that exact order, but everybody will get a chance to speak. I ask, as I try to slow down myself, that you speak into the mic slowly for the stenographer, and if you have written comment that you'd like to submit, you can hand that in as well. Thank you. First, I have Larry Farbstein, Athens.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the town and the town board, and the pilot as it's currently proposed, I have to tell you, is unacceptable to the town board for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is that it doesn't provide sufficient financial remuneration to the town. And in addition, some of the arguments that were made with respect to the IDA that's contained in the document that you provided on your website, at best is confusing, at worst is disingenuous in the sense that you're conflating different types of properties and different issues. In fact, there was a pilot for 20 years, and that pilot has expired. The generating company is asking for $30 million that it expects to spend to refurbish the facility in some degree, unclear as to how, but yet wants an additional 20 years in order to do so, even though we know that that's but a fraction of what it would cost to replace or reproduce the plant today. In addition, there are issues of what happens if the plant goes out of business. What I can tell you is, unlike a supermarket, unlike an office building, unlike virtually any other type of facility, power plants are unique in the following sense. They're unique because the state of New York, through the PSC and the New York Independent System Operator, ISO, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is called FERC, as the name, they require reliability on the grid, which means that they know how much energy or expect how much energy will be produced in any given day, month, year. And given the vagaries of power plants, some of them are down for work, you know, they're off the grid at any given time. They require at a minimum a 20% cushion to make sure that we don't have rolling blackouts, brownouts, or etc. That is the reason that within your document you talk about ICAP payments. ICAP payments are installed capacity payments. They're paid to every generating plant in the state of New York to make sure that they're able to function when called upon. The other issue has to do with, yeah, the time is up? Okay.
Oh, wait, he's representing the town of Athens. He's an expert in this field. The town of Athens ought to get more than
Point
3
of order.
minutes. He should get.
You
he should
did
be
contact
able
us
to
ahead of
continue.
time. I extended your period. He can speak at the end if he would like, and we are accepting written comments until next Friday.
I would be willing to yield my time to him.
Okay.
I'm one of the speakers.
Yes? Okay.
How about that, Larry?
Paul, your graciousness is only exceeded by your good looks.
Well, thank you. That's, I would say about that. About you, my brother. We do know each other, just and for a long time.
So getting back to what I was saying about the ICAP payments, that the state through the ISO makes that payment. So the issues here are a number of issues. One is, what is the $33 million being used for? Because to the degree that it increases the functionality of the power plant, obviously, A, it would run more, and B, by having this additional capacity, the ICAP payments would also increase. Number two, in the document, you talked about settlements that occurred for other power plants in the state of New York. As it turns out, they were my clients as well. So I can speak about the plant in Haverstraw, the Bowline plant, and the plants in Newburgh, Roaston, and Danscamp. And let me tell you what the difference is. So we have the Athens power plant. It was built circa 2000, as you all know, living here. It's what's called a combined cycle plant. What is a combined cycle plant? Well, the best I can tell you in terms of an illustration is a turbocharged engine. So for those of you who happen to have cars that are turbocharged, what it does is it spins the turbines, combined cycle, produces steam, the steam is put back in and spins the turbines again. That is compared and contrasted to the plants that were put forth in the IDA document, whether it was Bowline, whether it was Roaston, whether it was Danscammer, that are simple cycle plants. They were built, Danscammer was built in the 60s, Roaston and Bowline were built in the 70s, and they're simple cycle. And what does that mean? It means really, there's a term of art called spark spread. And what spark spread is the amount of electrons, or the amount of kilowatts or megawatts that can be produced for a given amount of energy that is necessary, whether it's natural gas, whether it's oil, whether it's anything else. The efficiency of the Athens plant when compared and contrasted to the plans that are set forth in your document, is apples to oranges, night and day, because those are simple cycle and they don't have anywhere near the BTU efficiency that the Athens power plant has. So because I don't want to take up other people's time, just to sum up, you have a difference in the plants. You're talking about a partial improvement that could very well increase not only the efficiency of the plant, but in terms of how much it could produce, which would mean it would get more revenue from the production of kilowatts, but also would increase the amount of ICAP payments that it could get. And you have the fact that the state and the federal government will require this cushion to make sure that when you go to turn on or turn on your lights, that they turn on. Without it, you wouldn't know. You don't want to be, in rolling brownouts or blackouts. So for all those reasons, plus whatever settlements were made for those other kinds of properties, they're not apples to apples. And with that, I'll let other people speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst.
Next on my list, I have James Bucci, Greenville.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Bucci. I'm from the Greenville area. I own a small company, Bucci Painting Corp. We do industrial coatings applications, and I'm here to say a positive word about the power plant. We've been working there since 2006. My company was very small in its infancy when we started, and it's been a great opportunity for a small business. We've had anywhere from 1 to 10 employees working at the plant on different projects, many weeks out of the year since then. And as far as the facility goes, compared to other locations we worked throughout the state and region, it's extremely clean. There's a culture of safety, and also, at least from what I've experienced compared to other places, there's a concern for the environment. One of the things that we focus on a great deal is preservation, so maintaining the facility, and also maintaining tanks and containments and things of that nature, which would be a fail-safe if there was to be any kind of issue. So as far as our employees go and our company, we've benefited greatly. Because of the work there is a bit of a multiplier effect that goes on. One for the local guys and their wages that live throughout the area, but also we get tens of thousands of dollars in materials from local vendors. So I'm assuming that affects the tax base there as well. And the people there are very concerned, what I've seen, for the local town. I think there'll be some people here to speak to some other charities of that nature that I think benefit the area greatly. So that's just a positive word from us. We truly appreciate the facility, and I would say it's definitely a step above as far as compared, like I said, to other locations. And that's my little tidbit for you. Thank you so much.
Stephen Rainfeld.
Good evening, my name is Stephen Rainford. I work for a company called Northeast Precision Welding. Again, like Mr. Bucci's company, we're involved both on a regular basis, but also for any kind of a circumstance that means the plant must be maintained. Our employees, again, live in this area. We have regular business with them, have done for the last at least 10 years. And we know their culture to be one of safety. they won't let us on the site unless we have the same culture that they prescribe. So as long as we do our work right, we can watch them all the time. We see them doing their work the way they should. So the safety I see is their main concern. I also think that our employees bring a lot of energy to their business, and together we make it safe. Thank you.
Patty Shane.
Hello, my name is Patty Duchesne. I'm the Executive Director of Matthew 25 Food Pantry in Catskill. I'm not here to debate anybody's assessments, who's right, who's wrong. I am here like the following people who spoke. I have run the food pantry of Catskill. I serve Athens, Coxsackie, Columbia County, Ulster County. Whoever comes to my door, I serve. And on that note, it takes a lot of hands to help me. We're a non-for-profit organization. Athens Generator has been graciously kind enough to help us every year. I serve between 100 and 150 families every month. When Christmas comes around, Athens Gen is there to help. Not only financially, but also as Belvedere staff. Their employees come down. The management comes down. They have helped me pick up 125 turkeys to bring down. So the families and community is very important to me, that they can have a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner as well. I couldn't do it with Athens Gen helping, and I'm not the only one they donate to. Besides Thanksgiving and Christmas, we've had Easter, we've had food along the way. If there was physical help, they would come and help us physically. But also, they've helped out teenagers, they've helped out youth groups, they've helped out libraries. They have helped a lot. We used to have the SMET plant in Catskill who used to help, but we lost them. All I'm saying is I'm here on a positive note for Athens Gen. I'm concerned about their families and the people that are employed there. I hope that they continue to be able to have their jobs as well. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Joan Cameron. Is it Joan or John? John Cameron.
Right. My name is John Cameron. I'm a resident of Athens. Personally proposed the pilot program in general. I feel that the pilot program was put in place to entice the power plant to be built and be brought here, which in my opinion should not have been in the first place because it was built on a green area, which hardly ever takes place for a plant of that size doing what it did. Also, the fact that Athens, unlike Coxsackie, does not have a lot of commercial tax revenue brought into it, and we are being robbed of the commercial taxes that can be paid to the town, which our town desperately needs. There had been a couple contractors who spoke earlier in front of me, and they spoke mainly on the reputation of the plant, which I don't think is in question. I think what's in question is whether or not they should pay their full share, fair share of taxes. If you look at the entities that are involved, in my opinion, there's three. There's the IDA, there's the town of Athens tonight. Town of Athens is also a town of Catskill, but we're talking about Athens tonight. And there is the plant, the IDA, and the town of Athens. If we look and take those three entities, and the pilot program is put into place, who makes out and who doesn't? Okay? The town of Athens doesn't. The other two do. The IDA gets a nice fee, and the power plant gets a tax break. If we are sitting here and talking about keeping this plant, and it's very important to the IDA to have this pilot plant put into place, I would ask the IDA to donate their fee back to the town of Athens as a gift. That's all I have to say. Mr. President.
Richard Schwinden?
Yeah, I'm deferring. Lead volunteer? Lead, I'm deferring my time. I'm sorry.
I put to the tab.
It's fine. We'll defer your 3 minutes to somebody else. Okay? Carol Pfister?
I yield my time to lead volunteer.
Okay. Paige Bayer?
Oh, I said no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see. Isn't that a lot? Chris Pfister?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Chris Feaster, and I'm a former county legislator, and I'm the mayor in Athens for several years. And I was here.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Chris Feaster. I'm the mayor. I was the mayor of Athens for several terms, and I was around here when the last pilot was done, and there was a lot of controversy at that time. But as John said, I have a problem. You know, you look at all the businesses around here, little businesses, restaurants, mom and pop stores, and whatever, and none of them get a tax break that I know of. Once in a while, you might find a program they fit into. And whereas this organization comes in and gets massive tax breaks. I just don't understand. I know how it got there, but I just don't see why it's something that's permitted at whatever level, state, county, whatever. And I really question how the IDA should be involved in it. And the history of Athens Gen is pretty sad. I mean, they've had 4 bankruptcies, and they've been sold and resold. I don't know who owns the place, and I don't know if they know who owns the place anymore. Now we're getting another company in here, NAGC. Never heard of them in my life. And now they're going to be in here, and they're going to get the same rates. And one of my questions is, I have more questions, I guess, than answers, but one of my questions is, NAGC, what's the history of them? Are they in good financial shape? You know, are we going to have the same problems with them as we have with everybody else? And I'd like to know what their profitability has been over the last several years. The one thing that always seems to be missed in all these discussions is, how does the IDA calculate the fee that is charged for themselves, and how do they come up with the pilot numbers? I've never seen anything on it, maybe I just missed it, but I'd love to know that information. Now, Athens Gen is requesting $33 million for improvements, and I wonder how that compares to other facilities. Is this a normal request? If you spread it out over 20 years, it doesn't seem very high. It seems it should be the day cost of doing business. And every other company has to go through that. They have to do repairs, they have to modernize their plant, and most of them don't get any special consideration. And I wonder how the age of the Athens Gen plant compares to all these other facilities. Is it really that decrepit that we only can survive, they can only survive if we give them another bunch of money to run? So, and my last question is, so there's a lot of discussion in the document about, and that's the finding statement, a lot of discussion in there about the demand for power is decreasing and so on. But, you know, it seems to me that that demand is at least for peakers type plants, which only operate when there's an extraordinary need of power. For those, I would think the demand would get even higher, because all these other plants are going to be put out of business, old plants that pollute and don't fit into the state's plan. They're going to disappear, and it would seem that this plant could have a golden opportunity. I thank you very much.
Margaret, you have a question mark next to your name. Margaret Menkel.
I yield my time to the gentleman in the lead.
Lee Palmetier.
Thank you for those who yielded time to me, and I think it's good because the IDA didn't even describe what is going on here. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to describe what is going on with this deal. And a couple of the contractors that spoke about how important the plant is to the community kind of missed the mark, and I think partly because the IDA didn't describe to us what is going on. So the power plant that was built 20 years ago was given a pilot for 20 years with the intent that it would return to the tax rolls, and here we are 20 years later. And the only question is, does it return to the tax rolls and be taxed like any other citizen, corporate, or residential in the town of Athens? Or does the IDA enter into a payment in lieu of tax agreement? And so that's what we're here for. And the people that spoke about how wonderful the plant is, which may very well be true, I think there is a perception that the plant is going to go away if this pilot agreement is not signed, sealed, and delivered. And that's entirely untrue. So, whose interests are being served by this pilot agreement? I think we have to review the history of Athens Gen, which goes back 20 years, and I think that will reveal the answer to that question, whose interests are first and foremost here with this new proposed deal. So, Athens Gen, back in the early 2000s, was looking for a place to build a power plant. Under Article 10 of the Public Service Law, local zoning was overridden, completely neutralized, and the state is the agency that decided whether or not this plant would be sited here in Athens. So I refer you to the State Board of Electrical Generating Siting opinion and order in case number 97-F-1563, that it's an opinion and order granting certification of environmental compatibility and public need. I believe it was 2000, I'm not sure if that's the year. Just a couple of quotes to tell you that Athens Gen was not incentivized to come here. They wanted Athens. Athens did not want them. Nobody asked to have a power plant built in our backyard so that we could incur the risks, environmental and health risks that go along with it. But in that order, here's a quote from page 97. No other site has been shown to provide reasonable access to needed fuel and water. And then another quote on page 100. Applicant does not have alternative sites for its facility under consideration. In other words, there was no need to give incentives for the Athens generating power plant to locate in Athens from day one. they were coming. We had no choice. They were a more than $1 billion asset, which would have generated tremendous amount of tax revenues to the town. A fair payment because they're a very valuable property. But they know the IDA is open for business, and so they go to the IDA and say, hey, how about we work out a deal? How about we don't pay all those taxes, and how about you get a lot of money for giving us tax abatements? Isn't that a good deal? Well, yeah, it's a great deal for the IDA, a great deal for Athens Gen, and a lousy deal for the town of Athens, the Catskill School District, and Greene County. And I see that there are some legislators here, county attorney here. I'm so happy because I think you need to focus on what your IDA is doing and whose interests are they serving. So that's the original deal. In 2002, that's when the original pilot was signed and delivered. In 2007, chapter number 2, another example of whose interests are being served. You have to maybe decide yourself here. In 2007, Athens Gen did, in round numbers, we're pretty close, a $300 million mortgage refinance. Very little bit of that money, if any, was going to be reinvested in Athens to improve the facility, create jobs. It was just an internal corporate financial maneuver. And just like you and I have to pay mortgage taxes, they would have had to pay mortgage taxes. At the closing, a check written to Athens and the state of New York back in 2007. That check would have been about $1.5 million to Athens and about $750,000 to the state. But the IDA, Athens Gen knows the IDA is open for business, says, hey, how about this? How about we don't pay any mortgage taxes, and how about we pay you $500,000? 2007, that's the deal. That's what happened. Athens didn't get a penny. The state didn't get a penny. The IDA got $500,000 for the stroke of a pen. In 2012, another $300 million refinance. This time I'm the town supervisor. This time the county has enacted its own mortgage tax. So now you've got another player, the county, who actually has a little bit of influence over the IDA, but doesn't exert it. The town. And the IDA knows I mean business. So this time they said, hey, Athens, we're going to give you some of your money. And county, we're going to give you some of your money, but we're going to take $440,000 from Athens, $440,000 from the county, and $720,000 from the state. So Athens Gen wasn't saving a penny. It was just a deal where who was receiving the money was being shifted to the IDA. So the people of Athens and me, Mike, you may have been there, our current supervisor, I don't know back then, we stood up, we made our case, and the IDA changed its mind. Athens got every penny it was supposed to get. Greene County got every penny it was supposed to get, even though they didn't show up and fight for their own citizens' interests. And the state got ripped off by $720,000, but that's round off to them. So now here we are, presently. The application is for $33 million of improvements. That's less than 10% of the value of the plant, but for some reason that justifies renewing an entire pilot as if this new expenditure was the full $400, $500, $600, $750 million. I mean, right now it's on the books for $640 million full market value or thereabouts. So the IDA writes a statement of findings, and basically they're scaring us into believing that this power plant is going to go away. Well, the town's expert Lawrence Barbstein, I think, explained that it's not going to go away. This plant is going to be here whether they're on the tax rolls paying their full fair share or not. They are not going anywhere. In fact, on pages 14 and 15 of the draft IDA findings, you'll see some explanation of why this plant will be here. It's young and it's very important in our power grid. So if the pilot doesn't go through, this power plant will still be here and will be functioning for the foreseeable future for the full 20 years of this pilot, or more. So in 2022, Athens Gen and the town of Athens, the town is the assessing unit. Nobody else. We have the skill sets on our staff, including an assessor. Mr. Farbstein is a consultant. And the town of Athens and Athens Gen entered into an agreement 1 year ago that that plant is worth $640 million. The IDA does not have any skills to assess a power plant, or even to assess my residential property, for that matter. So, nevertheless, the IDA comes in, same as before. It's a sweetheart relationship between Athens Gen and the IDA because they both make out and we don't. And the IDA has legal authority, by the way, in case you don't know. New York State statutes provide them with the authority to do exactly what they're doing. They don't need us to approve or even like it. They'll do it if they can make money on it. Okay? So now the IDA is in, town of Athens is out. The IDA renders the property tax exempt by virtue of controlling that property. That means the town of Athens has no legal authority anymore over taxing. The IDA has essentially snatched it. But did they do it to help us? No, they didn't do it to help us. They're not doing it to help us. They scared a couple contractors. Those are Exhibit A, B, and C, the people that came up and talked and said, oh, they're so important to our town, they're charitable, they're spin-off business. That isn't going to change. It's going to be exactly the same the day they go on the tax rolls. So I think the IDA was effective in scaring people, essentially, into believing that we need this pilot, which we do not need. The $33 million of investment, facility upgrades, that's typical stuff. That's going to happen also regardless of the pilot. That power plant is going to invest the $33 million so they can remain in operation efficiently, just like anybody else, just like we put roofs on this school occasionally. That's all it is. And this pilot does not incentivize it, nor does it make it more likely to happen. And then the IDA, you know, here's another way maybe you can decide whose interests does the IDA serve. The statement of findings is replete. They want to drive home that $640 million compromise between Athens Gen and the town of Athens, the town being the assessing jurisdiction, is excessive. How did the IDA decide it was excessive? The town's expert explained that the rationale in the statement of findings is nonsense. He didn't use those words, but it's nonsense. There are ways to value the value of a power plant, and it requires expertise, like Lawrence Barbstein and others, that know the business, that have to know all of the ins and outs about the physical plant, etc., and know the accepted techniques to value such huge commercial enterprises. And the IDA does not have the wherewithal to do it. Not on its staff, and not even, I don't believe, they have a consultant. Because the statement of findings is the record here, and if it's not in there, it's not done. And there's no mention of the IDA hiring any expert consultants. So there is no grounds, no justification for the IDA to say repeatedly that Athens' $640 million assessment is excessive. They undermine Athens because they're not interested in Athens. They just want to make their pilot look better than it really is. The IDA also, continuing its fear factor motivation, tries to tell us that, hey, if they go back on the tax rolls, you're going to be in litigation forever, tax certiorari litigation. The tax certiorari is just a typical part of our government. It is nothing to fear. We could all take tax certioraries on our residential properties if we want, if we believe that the assessor has overvalued our property. It's just typical American government legal system stuff. Parties usually settle those things. But the IDA preempted Athens settling with Athens Gen because they snatched Athens' role right out from underneath it. Now Athens can't negotiate with Athens Gen because you've negotiated already. And you're going to get paid handsomely for it. And you haven't added any value to this project whatsoever. In fact, you siphoned off a lot of value, and I'm going to get to that. Finally, it pits the county versus the town. Statement of findings. The county's probably saying, oh my God, if there's tax certiorari, we have to make the town whole and we're going to be out millions of dollars. Well, remember, we can settle these matters. The IDA is negotiating with Athens Gen right now. They don't have magical negotiating skills. The IDA has a staff of 1 and counsel. So if the county is worried that they're going to incur a large liability, that's nonsense. It's time for the county and the town to step up, be big boys, and fulfill their function. And these people should be back on the tax roll. All right. In terms of the reliability of the numbers in the IDA's statement of findings, they claim that Athens will receive, if the plant goes on the tax rolls in the next 20 years, $13 million. But the numbers they use are all wrong. Using their method, which I'll just use it so that we can compare apples and apples, putting in the right numbers, putting in the right tax rates for all the different jurisdictions, putting in a reasonable escalation over the years based on numbers that I can support and back up. You can go on the comptroller's website and see what the last 10 years, I think it's actually from 2012 to 2022, I don't remember the exact same, maybe 2010 to 2020. For each one of these taxing jurisdictions, the town, the county, and the school district, how much have their property tax levies increased over that 10-year period? And the answer is not 1.5%. That's the escalation clause you guys are putting in there, 1.5%. But you obviously did not access this data, which is available. It's not easy, but a little bit of due diligence gets you there. I found it. I'm a private citizen. Town of Athens, over the 10-year period of 2010 to 2020, property taxes went up annually 2.4%. The county, 3.1%, and the school district, 2.4%. When you're talking about compounding those numbers over a 20-year payment cycle, those are huge numbers. So it's not $13 million that the town would get, it's $27 million. Just by adjusting those rates of escalation. So they under-predict the future income if the plant goes on the tax rolls, so that it's a favorable comparison to this lousy pilot deal that they're proposing. And it just gets worse. I mean, they're saying the school district would get $125 million, it's $209 million. They're saying the county would get $37 million, it's $58 million. I'm not even going to do the fire district because it's round off, but essentially they're predicting $180 million for all the jurisdictions. It's $295 million. So I think in Greene County, $110 million in 10 years is not something we could sneeze at. All right, I'm going to wrap up, but give me a few minutes here. So let's talk about going back to whose interest being served. The original deal, 2002. The IDA, in a recent communication I had with the IDA, acknowledges that their fee was $751,000 back in 2002. They also negotiated a power payment agreement where the Athens Gen would pay cash equivalent to a certain amount of power that they sell. There's a base of $200,000 a year, and then there's a true-up based on how much power they actually sold. Over the course of 20 years, the IDA made $3.8 million, rounding down, on those power payments. The IDA negotiated the lion's share for itself, by the way, because they get 5/7, and Athens gets the rest. So then in the refi in 2007, they made a cool $500,000 for that stroke of the pen. Then in 2012, they actually did 2 refis, and $640,000 for another stroke of the pen, $113,000 for another stroke of the pen. That's $5,835,000 that the IDA sucked out of this deal. That's value that the town of Athens could have had. The IDA did not need to be there. That plant was coming. It needed Athens, and you guys intervened and just started taking money out. And I think there was another payment, and the IDA can interrupt me now if I'm wrong, in the very beginning of $2.5 million, in addition to the $751,000. In terms of power payment, I think there's another $200,000 or so maybe over the next couple of years you might get. And now, this new agreement, the IDA's fee will be $334,000 right from the RIP. Then there will be $20,000 in monitoring fees over the next 20 years. And the power payments with true-ups probably another next 20 years, another $4 million. So they're gonna get another $4,350,000 out of this new deal. That is value that should come to the town of Athens, because it's unnecessary for the IDA to be involved. They don't provide any value. And also, it's not only the IDA maybe taking care of Athens Gen. Athens Gen takes care of the IDA too. They pay their IDA's attorney's fee for all the work being done on these deals. And not only that, it's a separate and direct engagement relationship. The IDA doesn't even know how much money Athens Gen pays IDA's attorney. They've agreed to indemnify the IDA if the IDA incurs any liabilities whatsoever relating to this deal. And if the IDA is ever on the receiving end of a lawsuit, say for improper use of its authority, Athens Gen is going to pay that too. So the IDA knows where its bread is buttered. They're shaking hands with Athens Gen, and they've got their back to you just like this, and they don't care. Thank you very much.
I'm Andrea Smallwood. I was the mayor of Athens, and I was here when the plant first came in, also with the Iroquois. How are you? I looked at the IDA and thank you that Leanne hit a lot of the questions that I was concerned with when reading this pilot agreement. And I'm still, you know, I now do some real estate, and I still can't wrap my head around how you came up with $5,250,000 pilot payment based on what assessment. Now, I've heard FERC, who was mentioned earlier, had assessed this plan at $530 million. And the company now is saying that it should be assessed at $250, and that the $400,000 that we spoke of is way above that. Well, when it was first built, the other question I had, it was at $1.24 billion. It took till 2022 for it to be lowered to this $640. Does the IDA just do pilots and then not look at assessments and just leave it and then say, oh yeah, the pilot's now up, we have to look at that assessment? I mean, none of the assessment and what is actually being paid makes any sense to me. And as far as what we're talking about improvements, I noted that only 15 million of this 33 million improvements will be done in 4 years from now. So if they go bankrupt again, these improvements still happen, then in the 8th year, the rest of the 33 million for the improvements. So what happens if they do go bankrupt again? It seems to be a pattern with this company and what's going on. My other question is 31 employees. Are they full-time employees? Do they get benefits? Because you don't see many people or many cars there right now, I have to say. And once again, the village, who gets a lot of the pollution, is completely left out of this power sharing agreement. When PG&E, who originally built this, came to the village, they said, everyone's going to have free electric in Athens if we come in here. The village got nothing out of this. And I would think that that should be considered, that some of the village gets some power sharing, even though it's in the Catskill School District, and this very building in which we're sitting now gets nothing as well, the Coxsackie Athens School District. So basically, those are my questions, but my really concern is, you know, how this number has come up, because it's a pittance in what we're all assessed at, and we pay our full share of taxes here, and we're only going up. Thank you for your time.
Michael Black.
For people who are not ignorant, can you please identify yourselves and what your positions are?
I'm so sorry. I am April Ernst, the Executive Director. I am joined by our counsel, Paul Goldman, our Chairman of the Board, Eric Hoagland, Chairperson, Fred Hendrickson.
Can you tell me what the annual budget of the IDA is?
It's on our website, I can't off the top of my head.
Roughly?
300,000. Not including building.
We can't hear you.
Not including what?
Our annual budget is posted on our website, off the top of my head, approximately 300,000, and that doesn't include building business parks that we also work on.
Can you explain what that means, building business parks?
It's not a good answer, it's just public comment. If you want to reach out to me, I'll give you a business card.
So you're not going to answer any more questions?
This is a public comment period addressing Athens Gen and the incentives.
Thank you. I'll take it you will not answer any more questions. Another question I had is, how many jobs has the IDA created? And perhaps you could get back to me. I'll give you my contact.
1,200.
Over what period of time?
20 years that I've been in the idea.
And
Can you tell me if I'm correct that part of the facility is the Athens, new Athens generating facility is a tunnel from the plant to the Hudson River for cooling water? Is that correct?
The project's well known. If you got comments on the financial assistance, please provide them. I don't want to be rude to you. Just, the project scope is well known. It's been well known for 20 years.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Michael Bulich.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Bulich. I am a resident of Catskill and a property owner in the town of Athens. I also pay school taxes to this Catskill School District. A lot of good points were brought up here. First and foremost, I guess, is a little explanation why pilots are handed out. Because if we didn't hand out pilots to big companies, no companies would come here to New York. Because our government spends too much and taxes too much. Counties tax too much, school districts tax too much, towns and villages tax too much in New York. We're a highly regulated, highly taxed state. So my question for you, potentially, and some may know this answer, is what was collected in taxes for the 3 districts that received taxes before there was a plant there, as opposed to what is collected now?
It wasn't incentivized, Mike. That's my whole point.
Your argument with the IDA
No,
may be
it's not
valid.
the IDA.
I mean, I'm a business
not
owner.
bring that plant here.
I understand, but I'm a business owner too, and I pay full taxes.
Let's try to make sure.
I understand. I get
You're
that.
a legislator, man. Make it.
All right, I'm a legislator, but that has nothing to do with it. I'm a business owner. I'm a property taxpayer also. All right?
That makes sense.
Now, plants, just like people who have businesses with equipment, it depreciates. Your equipment wears out. So the plant itself will depreciate through time. At least this is my opinion. Pipes depreciate, pipes wear out, pipe walls get thin, roofs get worn out.
Part of doing business, yeah.
Excuse me?
That's part of doing business.
It's part of doing business.
That doesn't mean the town has to pay for it.
No, but my point is what would Athens or the county would have had to pony up as other owners of property if Athens Gen wasn't here and government grew at 2.5% over 10 years or 20
Athens Gen is
years?
here. They are here.
Well, what my point is what would the burden have been on the other property owners? And nobody wants to answer that. How is it not relevant?
Well, I'll answer it.
Sure.
Because what if I didn't have...
Wait. We have a stenographer here.
Oh,
Please have some courtesy to her. She's got to take down the minutes of this. So let's not have a back and forth. If you want to say something,
That's all my point. Now, if someone can come up with those numbers and get them to the public, that's great. I just would like to know those numbers.
Just please, everyone understand, have some empathy for the stenographer. It's a very, very tough job. And when people talk back and forth and yell at each other, the record becomes a mess. So please, let's treat each other with the way we should, with the way we started. Thank you.
So that's all my point is I know that my taxes would have gone up maybe 5% every year over the last 10 years if Athens Gen wasn't here. That's just my point. You just want to balance out tax revenue and a tax base. Well, if you don't have an expanding tax base, your tax rate is going to go up. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leo Palmetier?
Well, I basically deferred my time earlier,
Okay.
but if you'll give me 2 seconds,
Sure.
I'll address the question that he asked, and I will bring it back to
Can you
you
come up
like that.
and speak into the microphone,
Sure, I
please?
will.
my house doesn't.
I generally don't need one.